Oh, good morning, Kevin. Oh, Kevin has lost audio apparently, or has a lag all of a sudden.
Yeah, all of a sudden things were great during that before we went live. And, yeah, but I think I'm here now, so it might be sketchy.
Well, so this is now officially a global phenomenon. We are all around the world, thanks to Kevin. Kevin, where are you at today?
I am in Cuenca, Spain, which is outside of Madrid. We flew into Madrid a couple days ago. We've been here 2 nights now. So, yeah, and we're going to head to, I think, Segovia tonight. Um, yeah, put me to work during my vacations. No, not really. I enjoy this too. And it's kind of lunch slash siesta time here. So my wife and daughter went out on their own, which is good. Let them have some time alone. Then my daughter was going to go to work and then we're going to leave for Segovia. So this is just kind of my relaxed time. And this is what I
Now,
do when I relax.
Sokovia, that's where the Avengers fought Ultron, right? Is that where you're going?
Maybe I know there's aqueducts there. That's about all I really know. I will
I
have
love
to try.
the.
I'll try to put pictures when I get back. I'll have pictures and stuff that we can show. So
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, good morning, everybody. Good to see you here. Mark bringing us out with the roar. Yeah, that's fantastic.
nice.
And we saw a lot of great people in the chat. Love to see everyone. Jason coming in with a great question. Who is heading to the Power Platform Conference in Vegas? Anyone? Bueller?
Do
Bueller?
do we know? Is that this weekend? Is it
No, I
now?
think it's. I think I don't. Honestly, I don't even know when the Vegas conference is. It's
Yeah.
coming up because I've been seeing people talking about it recently. Um, who's headed to like you're gonna miss the European conference by like a week or so, right, Kevin?
Yeah, we actually thought about doing it. We thought about extending our trip to be here the whole month of September and go to Sweden during that conference, but it just didn't totally work out. I had some other change of plans come up, and I need to be back in the states. So yeah.
We'll try not to put you to work all the time, but you are going to be here next week as well. You've got actually
Mhm.
a great session that you're going to be showing, right?
Yeah. So a while ago, we were talking about doing paginated reports from the service. And so
Hmm.
I'll get everything ready, make sure it all works over from here, and we could plan on doing that next Friday. So join us to talk about pageant. I think this came out early August, right? So
Yep.
we'll do paginated report builder on the service and look forward to that.
Yeah. So we're excited. We're excited to be having it, but today's a big one. It's our 50th episode that we're going to be kicking off. Um, can you believe we've done 50 of these, Kevin?
It's unbelievable. That was a whole nother reason I couldn't miss. When I looked the other day and saw 50, I'm like, wow, what a milestone. I mean, this has been fantastic, doing this and getting up to episode 50. The continuous learning on my part, being able to share and have these great discussions with everybody that joins in the chat. And even outside of it, I mean, this comes up on other conversations that I have. And I'll ask people, hey, do you want us to do an episode on this? So yeah, this is great. Did you think we'd make it to 50?
Uh, honestly, I wasn't. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about it, and I wasn't until I was making the material, like putting the slides and stuff together. Going, holy cow, that's 50. That's fun. Um,
Yeah, that's probably the best way is don't think about it and just let it happen.
Yeah, that's exactly right. All right. For anyone who's new here, why don't you drop a new in chat so we can see if there's anyone new. We're always welcoming new people, and if we don't have new people, that just means hey, let people know about us. We'd be happy to like connect with more people and love to see the community grow. A few rules. Number one, if you have questions, we want to answer them. So please put a Q in front of it so it stands out so that we can make sure that gets in our queue. And number two, please don't repeat or spam questions. It just doesn't do a whole heck of a lot of good there, just because it gets very, very awkward there. But follow Kevin and I on X at
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn. We're both available there as well. But with that, I know we've heard. Yes, we are having the best day ever, and this is going to be the best episode ever. No, look at that. We've got a newbie.
We got
Yay!
somebody new. Yay.
Yes. Welcome to the horde. So
So if you go back to my comment, the El Major Day, I won't be able to say it correctly, but that's best day ever in Spanish. That's what I put out there.
oh
I had to
yeah.
ask my wife what it was earlier today.
No wait,
So
that's Stina did
that's
that. Oh
yeah,
no. There we go.
there you go. Best day ever.
Best day ever. Let's go. Holy cow. Hey
Oh,
Johnny,
Johnny.
welcome.
Johnny's
All
returning
right.
because we're talking about his book. Gotta love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wonderful. um there you go. 18 bucks a month for no ads. So yeah, I don't know why YouTube's doing that, but they balance out all my stuff. So, if you don't want any ads whatsoever, you can also watch us on LinkedIn, X, and now Rumble as well. So we are available on an
Ooh,
ever-growing list of platforms. Um, so look for us wherever you enjoy watching your content. So, all right,
nice.
we are going to be
Hey, so
delving.
by
What's
the
that?
by the way, the Power
Mhm.
Platform in Vegas uh, is officially the 18th through the 20th, and there's pre-cons the 2 days before, so the 16th and 17th, and a post-con on the 21st. So there's
All
your
right.
Vegas dates.
Okay. All right. So it is just right around the corner. And so if you are connecting, I know Jason is, I'm guessing Jason is heading there because he's asking about it. So, do connect up. This is a fun community of people to connect to. And I know those conferences can be interesting because, like, you go from like surrounded by a million people, like all over, and then all of a sudden you're like all by yourself. And that could be weird and disorienting, but if we get together that can help even that stuff out as a community. So
Yeah.
especially there are a lot of introverts in this world, especially in this field, so feel free to reach out and talk. Uh, I don't think anyone here bites as far as I know, so
Or without asking first.
yeah. All right. Well, we are gonna kind of like jump in and start talking about. Actually, before we actually do this, I want to hit in on this book here. I'm gonna go full screen just for a second here, Kevin.
Yeah,
Um,
that's fine.
so great book, and we've got the author here in the chat. So Johnny is one of the authors. So is Stephen and Daniel. They've written this great book to help you get up to speed in Microsoft Fabric. I highly recommend it. I own two copies, so I own the physical and I own the Kindle copy. Kevin, uh, uh, you've got the two copies as well. I understand, right?
Yes, same thing. I got the actually a PDF version up on one screen today, and I got the physical copy. I happened to leave it in the States. I brought some other books with me, so yeah,
Uh,
I think it's a good book. It was good to have it both.
yeah, and so I'm gonna say, Fernando's asking, did I finish reading it? No, I just got halfway through chapter one, and I went, we've got to do a live stream on these topics because frankly the chapter one is worth the entire book in and of itself. So that's why I bought two copies of it, because it's like, this is fantastic. We've just got to get up and running with this. So with that said, let's get into talking through chapter one. Okay, now there's 5 chapters, so it's only 20%. We're going to be talking about, we're going to be discussing the points in here because while it's going to prep you and get you ready for the DP600, there there's a lot you could just learn about Microsoft Fabric and how to do things inside of this book that I straight up didn't know before I started reading this. Like, hey, Kevin, do you know how many queries you can have in a data flow?
Ooh, I don't know that I read that part yet.
It's
No, I don't.
50. It's 50. You can only have 50. I had no idea. I knew there was a cap. I knew there was an upper bounds. I just didn't know that it was just 50, right? So that's one of the big reasons for a pipeline is if you
Mm-hmm.
need more than 50 queries, you need to use a pipeline. So fantastic book. All right, we're going to be hitting on, and chapter 1 covers, and frankly, like, holy cow, is this a broad chapter, right? So we've got how to set up your environment, how to plan that environment to get that all up and running. Yeah, and it's undocumented, right? Like the only place you can find that cap is in this book. So like there's information in this book you can't find anyplace else. So worth it. Um oh, let's adjust this. No, not there. I don't like that. There we are. I think that's better. Um nope, that's no good either. Hold on, sorry. It's like we're not a professional podcast here. You know.
First time.
Yeah, first.
We're new here too.
All right, so it's talking about let's plan. So measure twice, cut once. Plan what you're going to do. Then we're going to talk about how you implement that, like a fabrics environment, and then we're going to talk about life cycle management. Now, as you can see, like these are massive topics, so there's a strong chance where we're not even gonna get through all of this stuff here. So make sure that you get out there and check out this book. I mean, Johnny does uh, point out chapter 5 doesn't really count. It's just about like how to get through the DP 600. So um, uh, yeah, this is very, very, very good. So if we don't get through this, that's fine. You can pick up your book. Um, uh,
Sorry,
that's so funny.
sorry. I was messing with Johnny in the chat that I imagined him adding queries one at a time until he hit that 50 limit. It sounds like I wasn't that far off with his response.
Oh, that's too good, too good. All right, all right. So let's get into the conversation about this stuff, and let's start talking about how we can plan our environment. Okay. Now, we're not necessarily going to be going in as much detail as in the book. There's all sorts of in the book, and I've got that right here too.
Yeah, this is not a substitute for reading it. Please go
Right,
get the book and read it. But yes, we're going to touch on some of the high level things of why you want to get into it. So
right, right. So, oops, there we go. So, like, we're going to be talking about all this stuff, but like, we can't cover it all. So, buy the book and follow along. If you haven't, oh my gosh, does someone have a link? I think there's a link inside the YouTube description. If you wanted to buy it, you can get it on Kindle instantly and follow along. If you order it, I mean, it's going to take a day delay. Stay with us for that. But we're going to be talking about like what is it we're going to be using, right? So, like, Kevin, how do you plan out an environment and the resources that you're going to be using in a deployment like such as this?
yeah, I think it's a huge effort, right? And I'm kind of going through that. Oh, Johnny was able to put the Amazon link in for us. He's got it
Perfect.
to the UK site, but you could be able to translate that to US if you're somewhere else or whatever. But
Yep.
yeah, I mean, first and foremost, you got to look at, like it says here, kind of looking at your requirements and try to make sure is Fabric even the right platform for you. I kind
Sure.
of almost ventured right now these days, why wouldn't it be the right platform? But it is still a little bit young, and you know, looking at what your requirements are, one I'm looking at right now, they kind of have a shotgun approach to the things that they're currently doing. right? So they're not, they have some data bricks, but they're not a huge data brick shop, right? But if your requirements was, hey, I got to take what's already in Databricks, that may change what parts you're using for Fabric, right? So identify not only your technical requirements, but then your business requirements. Are you trying to get to the utopia of self-service or at some level of that? Do you have data scientists that live in the business units that you want to work with and be able to get the right data to them at the right time? So knowing all of that and start laying it all out, and I think the steps that we go into the book here definitely cover that. I know the one I mentioned to you Friday before I left, I spent a good part of the day going through tenant settings
Mm-hmm.
for a new one that I'm doing and making sure I documented and set them. And some of the things that are in the book came up when I was looking at that. So
Well, hang on. We're
yeah,
gonna get into that in
I
just a
know I'm
second
going
here.
too
So
fast. Sorry, I'm excited.
there's a lot in here. So I'm gonna say my favorite my favorite way to kind of like identify how much capacity or how this is going to work for you is to kind of like create an architectural diagram, right? So you start with like a high level architectural diagram of like, okay, I'm going to use data pipelines, I'm going to use some notebooks. Well, notebooks
Mhm,
means I'm going to start to use Lakehouse. But then maybe I start to like build out and do um, uh, stuff using warehouses, right? So I'm gonna lay it all out, and then I'm gonna like run through, and I'm gonna kind of like make a decision point on how I'm gonna manage my architecture for all of the data sources I have coming in. Maybe you're a small organization or a team, and you're like, okay, I've got two
mhm,
primary data sources. I don't know, I've got Dynamics and I've got some sort of other ERP system, right? So those are my two sources of information that I'm going to be pulling in. So you lay that out. Others might be a larger IT organization where you've got dozens, if not hundreds, of sources of information. And then how are you going to
mhm,
manage the flow of all that information in? And, if you're that large, how are you going to manage all of the teams that are working in those sources to bring that in? And a lot of that stuff, as you start to lay that out and start to like say, okay, I've got 87 sources, right, that are managed by, let's say, a dozen teams of people. Well, that can rapidly, quickly get you to the point where, like, you know what, maybe I want to have like I'm going to share two capacities, right? Like these two are big teams, and we'll give them each their own capacity, but these other 10 are smaller. They're not going to need as much, so we'll give them a
mhm.
joint capacity, right? Um, oh, look at that! Donald Parrish is coming in with the. You can get the PDF and print combo. Oh, that's for
Yeah,
59
the
bucks.
Microsoft Press that he put out there, that's the one that I got it as well.
I paid
He's
much
saying
more.
it's out of he's saying it's out of stock.
Oh wow, wow,
Yeah.
Ronnie, they can't keep your books on the shelf. Yeah, you sold out.
You gotta
Like,
do another run, another print run. Yeah.
holy cow, that's incredible. Um, so I
Don't
like to
spend
kind of
that
like
dollar. Wait, he's euros. Don't spend those €2 in one place though.
right, right. Um, but I like to lay all this stuff out, and that's what can help me like define and understand what capacities I'm going to use, what are the different things I need to have, and potentially like
Mhm,
when I lay that out, I could also do like a skill assessment of the team members and the teams that I have in place, so I understand how much training do I need to have. Uh, um, oh, look at this! X posts are coming through. Longhorn just bought the premium ebook. All right,
nice.
this restream is getting better and better.
It's been-
Um, so I, so like chats always came reliably from YouTube, never from any place else. Now X is there, and I think I saw LinkedIn too. So, um, but I like to lay it all out, and that helps me really get into like what resources I'm going to need, how I'm going to manage it, what trainings my team might need, what best practices we need to establish as
Mm-hmm.
part of the enterprise. Like, how are we going to manage our notebooks? How are we going to like lock down it? Well, and that'll actually lead into like the part two, like security and that stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
like this planning and understanding what you're planning for can really help uh, build out your solution from the start. So, all right, Kevin, I didn't mean to step on you there, but you got excited about the recommended
I,
settings. Can we?
yeah, no, you're right. I did, and also just there is sometimes my internet's a little lagging too, so always feel free to take over. I'm
Okay,
only here for just a little bit of relief, I think. Hopefully, we'll
all
work
right.
it out better for next week. But
Nope,
yeah,
I'm
so yeah, that
sure.
was good for the first box, identifying requirements and your SKUs and everything. But definitely recommended settings. So the book goes into the portal and showing you what available settings are there for Fabric. Like I said, I went through this for a new tenant that I'm working on, and besides just the Fabric ones, there are a ton of other settings that you could be, needing to look at. Chris, what's the first setting you turn off every single time when you get into being a new tenant?
Share externally. How about you?
Publish publish the
Publish
web.
to the web. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's the first one I turn off. But there's a whole bunch more for guest setup now, and
Yep.
I locked a lot of those down as well to make sure we're not getting, because I looked at the AD group or the AD structure. I saw a lot of guest users in here, so you definitely want to look at all of this. There are definitely guest settings for Fabric as well. And so a lot of it is set up just like what you see here as a common pattern. You could turn something on for an entire group. You could turn it on for specific groups. And this one is, what are we looking at? Users
So that,
can create the Fabric items. Yeah,
y-
and in the new one that I did, I set it up only for a specific security group, right? So we could manage the rollout, and I did that for the trials as well, just to make sure that we didn't have people going wild trying new things up without us being able to roll it out to everybody correctly.
yeah. No, that's a good call out, and I'm showing this page. Hey, Brenda. Um. Uh. Because if you don't have this enabled, if you have not
Mm-hmm.
turned on users can create fabric items here, uh, like you won't be able to do anything in fabric, right? So this
Right.
has to be enabled for at least a specific security group. Now, uh, I think fabric is so new as uh, I mean, in my trial dummy environment, I've got it turned on for the entire place. I would
Yeah.
recommend that you put a little bit of you put some controls on it and create a specific security group and enable inside that
Mm-hmm.
company, your company, right? So,
Yeah.
um, but there's a whole bunch of other fabric settings that people that it goes through and talks about. Um, uh, now I'm just sorry. But that's at the tenant level. What about at the workspace level? Do you have any uh, guidance there, Kevin, that you give on the workspace level?
Yeah. And I think at the workspace, right, it kind of goes back to the same thing we've seen with Power BI workspaces, right? We're going to
Mm-hmm.
have the same pretty much four roles: the admin, member, contributor, and viewer, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have a little bit, you need to read what the specific access is for each one of those, right? But you want to limit who has admin. And I think, do you have a slide on this one as well? I can't remember your whole deck.
I do not.
But um, my recommendation for admin, right, is always have at least two, right? But not everybody, right? Make admin, some places that might have a whole central IT, they might put a security group that the central IT is admin in every one of them, right? That is, some places might do that. But excuse me. if you're creating it for other purposes, at least have two admins, right? Or have a group that you could assign to it. Yeah, security groups are your friend in all of this type of stuff. Then really start thinking through, you know, who you want as members, who you want as contributors, right? And take the approach of, you know, the least privileged, right? So if they're going to be doing some work, you got to at least have contributor. Members have a couple additional accesses, like I believe they could add contributors and things like that. Um, and then viewers are just going to be able to view it in a whole. For your data part of it, your lakes and your warehouses and stuff, you might even get more granular into those, but I don't know that we're touching on that yet, right?
No, that'll come a little more details in
Then
later in the
later.
chapter.
Yes.
But generally, Kevin, you're spot on. We want to have the admins of the workspace, and then, if necessary, have contributors of the people who can add, build, or manage the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to differentiate those roles, right? I've seen some companies that just have creators and everyone has that admin access. I, I go back and forth as to a recommendation as to whether or not that makes perfect sense for everyone. Because I don't think it makes sense for everyone. Because I think there's some times where, like, hey, you've got a team of young engineers, right? Where you're led by a few admins who are super strong. You make those people the admins, but then you have the engineers that are, junior engineers coming in as just contributors. So I think that
Mm-hmm.
makes a lot of sense too, right? Um, Now, there's a whole bunch of other settings and that are in this chapter that we are not doing it justice to, but I want to keep going because we are halfway. We're halfway through the live stream and through the first two bullet points of the first piece. So, let's talk about our gateway types. There are three primary gateway types, two of which I don't want you to care too much about. Or and the book will talk about them. Although Johnny, well, I'll tell you. The two primary gateway types are personal and enterprise or standard. The personal gateways, and this is something I did not know, but personal gateways are the only way to support R and Python um,
Mm-hmm.
from like a workstation, right? You can't run R or
Right.
Python through an enterprise gateway. I didn't realize that. So yay, learned something new. And then, but that personal gateway is just for individuals, right? That's not, no one else can share or use that gateway. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
personal thing. Then there's the enterprise gateway or the standard gateway. That's a gateway that can be shared and used by many different people. You can install drivers on that gateway so people can then use that gateway with, like, if you have some specific Oracle database driver that you're trying to use,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I've seen companies that are on like Oracle 8.1, right? That's like 10 years out of service and whatnot. But if you are running that and you've got that driver, you can install it on the gateway and then you can use the gateway, right?
Yeah.
So those are
And
the
if you're gonna set up an enterprise gateway, please take the time and the cost to set up like a VM, maybe like up in Azure, so it's in the cloud. I've seen people install the enterprise, or I think it's called standard gateway now, like on a
Mhm.
laptop and make it, oh yeah, here others use it and stuff like that, and then shut their laptop off and go home. So
Yes, yeah, that's exactly right. And oh my gosh, yeah, Johnny's so spot on. So
this
I
that's
don't know if
very
this is an
Oracle
inside
specific.
joke with Oracle developers, but like, holy
It
cow,
kind of. Yeah.
yeah,
Once you install your Oracle drivers and everything, what they call is SQLnet and getting the SQLnet to work, TNS names.ora is an extremely important file for you. So
yeah. You got to go and manually edit it to make sure you got it all set up right, and it's just a pain in the neck. But
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So those are the two primary data types, and then
Gateway types,
uh,
yeah.
or gateway types. Yeah, and then there's a third, which is the uh, a virtual gateway that you can run through the service. Like, I thought, oh hey, I was so excited to see that it was brought up in the book. I'm like, I don't know a heck of a lot about this. I want to learn more about this, and it got 2 lines in the book. And I was like, oh, womp womp.
Yeah, VNets are interesting, right? So
Yeah. So
it's
got through
probably
some
a
real
whole
work.
chapter. Yeah, it's probably a whole chapter to go into all the VNet type of things. So
Yeah. And then the last section or the last part 4 of the first section is a Power BI theme file. Kevin, do you use Power BI theme files?
I do use Power BI theme files, and since I know originally I kind of started using them, and mostly it seemed like it was your color selection and things like that. But it's expanded out in the last few years, right? You could set a lot of your defaults to, like, for example, I keep getting on um, developers and everything to say, turn the right icons off, right? You don't you don't need pin to dashboard.
Yeah.
That's a hill I'll die on. All right. I wish that icon would totally go. I get why it's there, but my theme file, turn off pin to dashboard, right? And this way, when you're applying that theme, that icon's always gone. You don't have to explain it to people, right?
Yep.
I think in things like slicers, I don't think there's any icons I turn on in slicers, right? There's some visuals I was like, no icons on at all, right? But
Yep.
those type of things, right? There's so many more settings. Really need to go back and look at it if you haven't. There's a lot of good articles that people have put out about how to work with theme files. Um, there's the Power BI tips themes generator, right? That is
I
a
was
really
just going to
good
say
place. Didn't know if you had that up. Look at that.
the best themes generator, and I guess I'll be disagreeing with the book on this one. They call out a different theme generator. It's okay. I mean, it's good, but the best one I
Mm-hmm,
think is our friends over at Power BI Tips. This theme
mm-hmm,
generator is fantastic. They even have a paid version that you can actually. Oh yeah, look at that! You can subscribe to it. It is worth the money. Uh, because Kevin, a theme file is, for those of you who don't know what it's like, it's this big honking JSON file, right? And um,
mm-hmm.
what happens is you go in to make an edit and you format it, and if it's not right, you go to load it. If it's not right, it doesn't apply. I mean, it's not just a like an update and you're done type thing. You can spend hours futzing with that stupid JSON file to get all of your
Mm-hmm.
settings just right. And um honestly, Microsoft did not a great job in naming their objects. So like the names of different things are not the same across visuals. I mean, many things are the same, but not all of them. And so
Yep.
like you have to know by visual basis what you should be calling different things and settings. So like using the Power BI tips theme generator is absolutely fantastic. And I'm not paid a nickel by those guys for this. Kevin, have they paid you for your endorsement?
No, they have not paid me, but to be honest, I do have a free license from talking to Mike and everything. So I do
Fair
use
enough.
it
I
all the
do too.
time. Yeah. I mean, that's my only, total transparency, any, if you want to call it compensation. But what was it, $3 a month? It's really not that bad. There's a
Right.
whole lot more also that they give to you. They did a little bit of stuff with some AI to help get things to line up. Mike is extremely big on those type of things. If it's a pixel off, it drives him crazy. We've had many conversations about that. So
Yeah.
definitely use it, right? And even if you only pay, say, you want some of the advanced features, pay the $3, pay it monthly, right? And just use it for a couple months. Get the files once you download it, then fine, and pay it again when you need it, when you need to update it again. But Also consider, because I know they put a ton of development effort into this, because I've talked to them about it and everything. So it's well worth it to give them a little bit extra, little
Yeah,
kickbacks for them.
that is spot on. All right. Well, we're not doing great. We are halfway through the live stream, and we're just crossing the easiest third of the way through the presentation. So, more than likely, as I said, you're going to need to buy this book and get onto it. So, um, all right, let's talk about the actual implementation of fabric that we're talking about here, right? So, all right, the first topic, workspaces. We kind of touched this already. Admins and contributors, right? Plan that out.
Mm-hmm.
What do we use to define those? AD groups. I'm sorry. The hell's it called?
Yeah, yeah.
Not AD.
Entra,
Entra.
Entra,
Entra
Entra
ID group.
security,
Yeah.
right? And make sure they're security groups.
Hmm.
And most of them will be just fine as only security groups. There's only one tenant setting I ran into. There's one that works better for a mail-enabled security group that you would have to set up through um, Microsoft 365 admin, and that was just if you want to get alerts that the service is having issues or something like that. Everything else will work fine as just regular Entra security groups.
Oh, really? I didn't know that
Hmm.
was the differentiation. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Learning new
I
stuff all the
found
time.
well, either that or I don't have all my privileges set up correctly, but I saw that you could set up the mail enabled one through the Microsoft admin side, the 365 admin, but not through Entra. So,
All right. Awesome. Next level, we want to make sure we defined how we're sharing things. Now,
mm-hmm,
book outlines how we share workspaces, right? Again, workspaces are for your developers and creators, right? How we share work warehouses or lake houses. That's the data that analysts are going to be consuming and using. So, you may not be providing access like contributor level access to that, but you might be providing the read level access to the warehouses and lake houses. But the reality is, you're also going to be doing this on semantic models. And
mm-hmm,
honestly, I recommend getting in on um, uh, uh, I recommend getting in on the apps as well, right? Like, okay, hey, go front to back or back to front, however you want it, but make sure that you've got a sharing strategy in place with Entra ID groups that are out there and a pattern for how you create and manage those. Someplace on my website under like content, I've got some tools to help you do that. I don't have the
mm-hmm.
link because I'm not prepared, but uh, like like there's a lot of effort or there's a lot of value in making sure you've got good, consistent sharing patterns.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would add on to that, right? For the Power BI side, like you said, the apps, the reports, the semantic models, right? All of those best practices that we've had from Power BI just definitely don't go away.
Yep.
So just kind of make sure you think about that as you're setting up your environment as well and setting up your right groups for that. But as you're talking about now that we're adding data, like you said, lake houses, things like that, learn to manage that just a little bit differently. Definitely.
Yeah. And here, like, I'm going to toss out one for you. Okay. So let's talk bronze, silver, gold.
Mm-hmm.
Bronze is your landed workspace. Your raw data is going to go in there. I highly recommend that you secure that by either by individual lake houses for based upon the systems that are coming in, and then you share links, or at a
Mm-hmm.
minimum by schema that you then secure to the teams that are accessing and using. Now, evaluate what that security is like. You may find that um, it's important for your design to be shifted to have your lake houses in separate workspaces or lake houses in the same workspace. Test all of that stuff
Mm-hmm.
out. Make sure you understand what that's going to work like for your organization. Okay. Because, hey, I put everything in one. That works really good. Yeah, it does. But you don't need to because
Right.
of shortcuts And because
Mm-hmm.
of one lake, you can have those things separated out and they can still just be in those other workspaces. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a big part of it, right? And that's kind of why this all blends together, the workspaces and the sharing. And do you end up having a ton of workspaces, right? Even on the Power BI side, we would always have at least two, right? One for the reports, and that's where the app would be, and another one for the semantic model, right? And you might need to think, do you need a workspace that is your final data that's going to be delivered out to the semantic model? Is the semantic model in there? Again, you got to think of who it is that you're going to have access to, how, and how you're going to set up all your it is quite a bit of thought. Establish patterns, because it may not be just one pattern that you need as well, right? So figure yeah, there's a lot around all this, and I know I'm going through it with the new one that I'm working on, trying to figure out what are the going to be. I want to get down to just a couple patterns, because I don't want to have a ton of decision points, right? When it's like this, let's use this pattern. When it's like this, let's use this other pattern, but not many more, so that it doesn't get crazy.
right.
And like you said, you may learn and you may need to adjust. I think that's the beauty of all of this. And your next topic of sensitivity labels play into the same thing quite a bit, right?
Okay, Kevin. Since you led into it so nicely, what the heck are sensitivity labels, and how can I get them to work? I tried using them and they don't work for me. What's the deal there?
Oh, you want me to talk about that? I
Yeah.
thought you had it all down.
Oh, sorry.
Well, why don't you go ahead and take it? I
All
don't
right,
have it
I'll
as
explain.
much as
So,
you have.
sensitivity labels, for starters, they get inherited and they come from Purview. So you have to start in Purview.
Mhm.
You've got to get Purview up and running. Then there's some admin settings, and the book goes into it and talks about this. Um, but especially if you work in healthcare or in finance, or the financial sector, you might have a lot of PHI, a lot of PII data that you work with on a very regular basis. Being able to like track that through your data ecosystem is incredibly important, but very challenging. Purview allows you to kind of identify those fields in like a few key points, and it will, like, Fabric will allow you to track that as that information come through. um uh it'll allow you to bring it all the way through and like see what it's going to look like at the end. And just know, like, okay, hey, your reports can get that label of like, yeah, you're pulling in data from the gold layer, that's sensitive information, that's going to flow to your semantic model as sensitive, and then that ultimate report as a potential sensitive thing. So um it's really great. It just calling out, you have to use Purview to use the sensitivity labels. At one point in
Mhm.
time, that wasn't the case, but that is definitely the case now.
Yeah.
All right. Um, and then number 4 here is configure Fabric enabled workspace settings. There's actually a handful of settings that you can configure inside of Fabric on your workspaces themselves. Number 1 being like, hey, uh, it should be a Fabric workspace. You have to make sure that it's a Fabric capacity, right? And I'm actually
Mhm.
gonna pull it up so we can go in there and show it to you, right? So
Yeah, because
number
they
one,
changed some of the naming on this, right? Yeah, the license info
right.
now.
Yeah. So number one, you have to make sure that you're in a Fabric capacity. So current license, Fabric capacity. I've got Eagle. So that's a hot rod reference for those of you who like Andy Samberg movies. Um, but all sorts of additional things you can define, like where are you storing your data, how much is stored in there, are you configured with Git, and then and under data engineering and data science, you can actually define a whole bunch of things about the environment that you're working in, right? Like, hey, I've got a
Mhm.
starter pool here because frankly, I'm running on an F2, right? Like, I don't have a larger one. If you're working in a
Right.
larger enterprise, you might have a large capacity that you work with. you may want to be very specific for a given workspace as to what size capacity they're allowed to use, right? So maybe you've bought a P3 to be used by 20 different departments. But as an admin, you've decided that those 20 different departments, none of them are, you're not going to allow any of them to be admins. You own it, because you're paying for it, and you want them to only use that starter pool or a small pool for their
Mhm.
use. So that's your basic um, setting, and then maybe you adjust it up when one of your teams complains or whines, right? But you can define your environment, runtime version, concurrency, logging, all of that stuff is available in here. All
Yeah, and
right.
I think the environment gives you the spot to where, um, like if you hit is there's a drop down, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's see like even a public preview to start kind of testing before something comes out as the next default standard, right? So you want to make sure you set your workspaces up for that to be able to migrate up and make sure you don't have any breaking changes.
Yeah. Bu- 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 Yes, 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 yes. So that's just one way that we configure our workspaces. And then the last one is managing our fabric capacity. And, we're just going to go right into it. And that's in the admin portal. Now, if you're not an admin, you may you're not going to see everything here, but if you're a capacity admin, you will still see
Mhm.
this option right here for capacity settings inside the admin portal. Okay. But you can go over to oh, look at this. I still have a premium capacity. This is going away. Um, we will still have a Power BI embedded though, just for those
Yep.
people who are aware. So if you're running like analytics that you're sharing outside of your organization, or it's a solution you sell, you could still use that embedded solution. Trial capacities, mine's dying, but that's okay. All I care about is Eagle here. But the book runs through
Eagle.
all these different settings you can go in and test out or adjust. Like, oh, I want to know I'm using. I really like to know when I'm using 60% of my available capacity.
Mhm.
That's kind of the standard level I like to be aware of, because that kind of tells me when, like, I need to start planning for either a scale event, to like scale up to the next F SKU, or that I need to look at optimizing my loads. Okay. But yeah, you can decide, okay, who's able to contribute to this capacity, i.e., who can create a workspace and attach it to this capacity, and a whole bunch of other
Mhm.
things on here. Any specific
Okay.
call outs, Kevin?
No, I was going to say on that last one though, there is a overall tenant setting that you could set up a security group of who could create workspaces in general,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so those go hand in hand, right? Because you got to be able to create a workspace to be able to assign it to this. So think about your capacity admins that you do want them to be able to put a new workspace on there. They got to be able to do workspaces. That's another one that I tend to restrict down to a smaller group of people, so that not everybody's creating workspaces and it gets crazy. Always set up a request process right after, right? If you filter that down to some people, set up a request process so others can get one. And there's
100%.
go for this. This is extremely important here. The XMLA endpoint. I
Yeah,
always get it over to read write.
that's exactly right. And honestly, ooh,
Bless you. Yeah, the reason we get it to read write, right, is um, as soon as you go to use your external tool and you can't save back with it, you're gonna go, shoot, I forgot to change that and go right in. So
yep. So I don't know why Microsoft doesn't default this to read write on these capacities, but
yeah,
by default, it's just read.
yeah.
They turn lots of things on by default. I don't know why that's not, but like if there was one that like could definitively be set to read write, it's this one. because
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anyone who accidentally goes to writing a model. Like who's accidentally firing up tabular editor 2 and like modifying models, right? Like that's everyone who fires it up is what
Right.
I
Well, and
think
that
right
comes into play in your other workspace settings too, because there's one
now. Yep.
underneath. I think it's Power BI that says allow you to change the model in the workspace. And I think that has to be set to read write even for that feature to work. So those all go hand in hand.
Yeah, Cody's got a great question, and I'd love to hear your answer to this one, Kevin. What
Okay.
scenarios does it make sense to delegate these different admin responsibilities? Doesn't it turn out to be a single team or person most of the time?
I would say starting from the overall tenant, it should be again a small number, never one. There should be at least two, right? But a small group of people that should be able to do that. And it's important that they know that they have to document what they changed, right? Then from
Yep.
there, and this is why it's broken out, is capacity level is going to be a little more dependent on what's going on inside your company. May come down to who's paying for the capacity.
There,
if
that's
yeah,
exactly right.
if a
Who
business, go
pays?
ahead. Yeah.
If you're paying, if someone else is paying for that capacity, like let them be the admins to manage and decide uh, what they're going to what they're doing, right? If they're not paying and it's all managed through central IT and it's central IT
Mm-hmm.
who they hang every time things break or don't work, then it's central IT who are the ones who should be managing the capacities. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
unless you
I like to ask the question, who's going to get that call at 2 a.m. when something goes wrong,
Yeah,
right?
right. Yep.
And if you know if it's that person that bought the capacity or that person in the business and they're saying yes, I have that responsibility, then I want them to have as much privilege as they can, right? I may not give them tenant level, but give them the capacity level because let them get that call and be able to take care of what they're going to be able to take care of without just having to turn around and call somebody else. Definitely.
Yeah. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, let's head back into it. We only have 7 minutes left, so we're definitely not going to get into through this whole chapter. We failed you. I'm terribly
Lightning round.
sorry.
Lightning
What's
round.
that?
You go, Chris. I said lightning
Yeah.
round. You
Oh,
go. One
lightning
more
round.
slide. Come on.
All
Yeah,
right, we got
go
two
for it
more
on the
slides
lightning
actually.
round. Oh, okay.
Technically
You
three.
go.
All right, let's go. Let's see if we can do this. All right, let's talk about our next three segments in here. And this is managing our development life cycle. Okay. Now, I think there's two good key parts. Part one and part two is kind of separated out. I called it version control and PBIP. Version control is your data analytics, um, how you're managing your code for your notebooks, your warehouses, all of that stuff. I might even put in there your semantic models, although I think it kind of comes in another place. But um, this is this is where you wanted to have Git with deployment pipelines that manage your
Hmm.
deployments of your models, and that's where your code is actually managed. Okay. We'll be doing the same thing with Power BI, but the PBIP files, honestly, are kind of separate. In fact, I would really recommend you separate these into separate DevOps packages and projects so that you're not managing them all in one place. Just because uh, the reports are almost a different animal than all of the other code that you're working with. Okay,
Hmm.
and if you're not familiar with PBIP, this book does a really good job of going into pretty good detail on how you can manage your reports with uh, in Git within Power BI, and that this is brand new to like the Power BI world, right? Like for like 14 years in Power BI, we had no real Git integration. Now we do. That's a great thing. Okay. Um, so make sure as you're planning this out, you build out that strategy and plan for how you're going to manage those two separate code bases. Okay. Um, next one is your deployment solutions. How are you going to manage uh, uh, moving from dev, test, prod? Are those the right layers? Do you have three? Maybe you just have two, right? Maybe you have dev and you have production, right? That can be really fine in a lot of situations, especially if you're a smaller company. But maybe you're a bigger
Mhm.
company and dev, test, prod is good. But you know what? I'm also going to implement individual feature branch workspaces, which is
Mhm.
like the newest capabilities that are out there. I highly recommend it so that each developer, when they're building a component, they're that development activities that as they're drag and drop and writing code or whatnot, that's in an isolated development environment for them, that they first then have to integrate into a dev environment to make sure it plays nice with all the other code at the development layer so that nobody can see it, and then move that into a testing space where the other, like the people who are unit testing reports and unit testing data, they could see it at that layer, right? So making sure that you define those solutions and got those in place, right? All right.
Yep.
Part two. All right. The next thing is understanding like your lineage capabilities inside of the service, right? Understanding like how you can trace that. And I think I could show it to you really quick here. Um, so you can actually see, wow, what was that? Um,
Yeah.
uh, so you, so this little button here allows you to see lineage view. So you can see like, okay, hey, where is all my stuff? Oh my gosh, look, this is a great example. Look, this AdventureWorks Lake
Mhm.
House is populated, and somehow these semantic lake houses feed in. All right, that's weird. Um, but like, look at, oh, that's the report. This report comes from this semantic model. This lake house feeds all of these semantic models, right? And you can actually,
Mhm.
holy cow, is this good now? I mean, it was always good, but like this is like
Yeah.
really tells the story, right?
Can you click
But
on something on the far right side? I think does it highlight well the other side,
oh,
the report. I think it might, or you could click on the lineage of that report or something. The little icon on it, that one,
oh,
and it
ho, ho,
starts
ho.
highlighting.
Holy
Yeah,
crap on a cracker. Look at this. Yeah,
yeah. That is wonderful, right? Because now you can see everything lit up on. How did I get here?
yeah. Um, all right, well, you go away. I don't want you up there either. Um, glad I didn't have any banking sites up.
Come on, lightning, lightning, lightning.
Right,
Come
right.
on,
Like no,
come
I'm
on,
rabbit
come
holing.
on.
Okay, XML deployments. That was the component that where we talk about managing our semantic models. Like talked about briefly, but you're going to be separating out your models from your Power BI reports into a central model. You'll manage it through the XML deployments and CI/CD pipelines, thus leading us to reusable assets. So you can use um, uh, PBIT files for creating templated reports that people can use and access. Um, you can even use PBIDS files. Uh, those allow you to create like configured templated data source files so that you're always accessing the data in a consistent and reliable, relatable way. All right. I guess we did this. So that is implementing analytics solutions using Microsoft Fabric. So yeah, we did it.
Amazing. Hey, and also, I don't know that we mentioned this. Um, when you buy it through the Microsoft Store, at least
Hmm.
there's exam help too. There was, I know with my copy, I'm able to take exam preps and stuff like that as well. So make sure you look at that.
Oh, that's just fantastic. So I think Johnny dropped off. I know it's very late at his time. I was so
Hmm.
happy that he joined, but get the book, reach out, let Johnny uh, uh, Stefan, and is it Daniel? I don't pronounce his name right.
Yeah, I don't. I
Okay.
always wait till I'm around them and hear it and say it again after that.
All right.
We'll
Fair
talk
enough.
about me and names another time. So,
All right.
topic
Well,
for the future.
hey, Kevin, thank you for taking uh, a little break from your vacation to come join us today.
I enjoyed it. Thank you for putting that great presentation together. I'm just glad I was able to jump on and help distract you through
Thank
it.
you. And you know what? Hey, thank you guys for all of you tuning
Yes,
in and being part of the conversation. We
great chat. Yeah, good chat this
uh,
morning.
Yeah, thank you guys so very much. Really appreciate you guys joining. We'll be back next week. We'll be talking about pageant reports. So come
Good.
and join us as we dig in. And Kevin takes another break from his vacation.
Yeah.
Uh,
And if you think my demos go wrong when I have great connection, wait and come next week to really see what could get messed up.
yeah, and yes, and you know what? Steen is spot on. You guys have the best weekend ever. All right,
All
peace.
right. Peace.
Oh, that's not right. You can't do that through the
New.
hotkey. Wrong hotkey. Bye-bye. Digital combines strategic industry insight and advanced technical expertise to uncover and solve your digital transformation challenges. If you're interested in learning more, check out our website at bakertilly.com/digital.